That's nice. It's my granddaughter Helena's birthday.
Oh,
Yeah, she's turning 5 today.
Sharon's in the 5s too. 9 of them.
And how are you, Craig?
I'm doing well. I'm hanging in there.
Yeah. Have you had enough yet?
What's that?
Have you had enough yet?
Oh, yeah. I just try not to think about that and jump in the pool. So.
We had our first virus test.
Oh, really?
At Mayo Clinic. In order to see a doctor for an appointment, you have to have a COVID test.
Wow.
So we went yesterday. It was a bit uncomfortable, but it only lasts for about 10 seconds. They stick a thing up your nose, a swab.
Where are you?
And when will you get the results?
About 72 hours. But I don't think we're contagious. We don't have.
Well, you know, I've known more than one person who was asymptomatic and tested positive.
Wow.
So just because you're not feeling any symptoms does not mean that you don't have it. That's why they say it's so important to wear a mask, because you could be spreading it without knowing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm scared about, since they've said that have really increased here in Arizona. There's been a sharp, big rise in the hospitalizations, and people getting sick from it now is high. So I'm a little more frightened.
So it looks like kind of a small group here today. My computer says it's 1:03. And you know me, military time, I like to respect people's time and start on time. So I think we're just going to plunge right in here with who we are. And Marilyn, but she has to leave early for the wonderful simcha of her daughter's birthday. So that's exciting. What do you guys do to celebrate?
Well, not much now because we're still distanced.
Oh.
I don't think I'll be able to give her a hug, but I'll get to see her.
Yeah. How are you doing, Sandy?
Good, good. Hi, Frank.
How are you doing, Sandy?
Did you get a new hat, Sandy?
What?
Did you get a new hat, or is your hair really gray now?
I have another. I'm getting it cut, so I have an appointment.
I have the same.
You do? I love this hat. Yeah. Anyway.
Is that one of Rabbi's hand-me-downs?
What'd you?
One of Rabbi's downs?
Yeah, I'm in the shade here.
Yeah, hi, Joe.
Hey, Joe. How's it going?
Hey, Joe.
Going okay. What's going on with you?
Oh, we're good. I'm up in beautiful Munns Park, so it's just lovely.
Nice.
How's Carol, Joe?
Well, she had her epidural today, so she is taking time off to rest right now.
Good.
So
Okay.
she's doing okay. I just gave her some lunch, which is why I'm a couple of minutes behind. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, we're just about to jump right in here. Jane and Richard, you missed last week. Last week we were talking about fears about aging within a whole list of categories: profession, family life, finances, health, intellectual life, and spirituality. So fears that we may have related to aging in those categories, and also things that we may be looking forward to within each of those categories. And we actually journaled about that a little bit. So we're on page 50 in the book, and this echo is making me, is that from you, or?
How do we want to do this? Yes. You want me to shut off?
I'm wondering, I'm thinking I'm going to move to another table and see if that helps.
Okay.
Okay, you guys, let's play nice.
I need to socially distance from Frank.
She's too close to me.
Yeah, we were afraid over here that there's some children playing in the pool. I don't want to. I'm hoping you'll be able to hear over the sound of the pool, but that's better. I'm not getting the feedback.
So if I talk now, is there an echo?
No, you're fine right now.
Okay,
Yeah, no,
okay.
Oh, hi. I see Mom and Erwin. Mom, look how pretty it is. I'm up in the pines. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, isn't that nice? So Frank and Ron played 9 holes, and Ron is continuing on the back 9, I guess is what they would say in golf speak. So Frank is at the next table over here with me, and I see you got a haircut. Sandy Copel.
Yes.
It's adorable.
Who did it for you?
I walked 1.5 miles to get it, and I sat in my hairdresser's backyard, and she cut it. I washed it at home, and she didn't even blow dry it. I just walked the 1.5 miles home, and that's how I got my hair cut.
Yeah, it looks great.
That was good.
All right. So we're on page 50. We're moving on to the third part of this exercise, which has to do with negative models of aging. When we think about aging, and there are, again, some prompts to consider. Negative models of aging in literature, in films, in television, advertising, religious instruction, your family life, and older people you have known. So I guess the consideration is that when we have these negative role models about aging, they impact our thinking about our own aging. So it's good to be aware of these negative role models. So I didn't think it through in terms of all of those specific sources, but I'll let you all start. I have a little list of things that occurred to me of concerns that I have, negative stereotypes about what it means to get older. So either through the lens of any of those particular areas of life or just in general, when you think about aging, what are some of the negative stereotypes? Getting old means what?
For me, Rabbi, I think sometimes people don't listen to older people because the feeling is they don't know.
That is, I'm writing that down. That's a good one that I didn't think of. Not being heard.
Right. Yes.
Not being heard, not being listened to. One of my girlfriends says that she has had this, especially as a challenge in medical situations, that she feels like, you know, if she comes in with a complaint about some orthopedic situation, that whereas a younger person, the doctor might be very responsive and concerned to help fix whatever it is. She's a couple years older than I am, so late 60s. She feels like she's seen as like, oh, she's an old lady. What does it matter if she can't bend over, if she, can't do some physical activity that she wants to be able to do? So yeah, not being heard, not being listened to. You were talking about it even in terms of wisdom. That's just the opposite of, you think about that. I mean, what's the initial book called? Wise Aging. We'd like to think that we have some wisdom and experience to pass on, and yet you're saying the stereotype is, to just dismiss, though, what does he know? He's just an old man.
Yeah.
I think part of that is, I'm sorry, I think
yeah, Sandy and then Joe.
Okay. I think part of that negative stereotype is because a lot of older people don't keep up. They don't have the computers. They don't know how to do the latest technical things, and they're not staying attuned with what's going on in the world. And so that's part of the problem, the stereotype of why people aren't taken seriously at a certain age.
Yeah, that is true also. We have a responsibility to be au courant or to be dismissed.
But when I go to a doctor's office, and this has been going on for a while, I hate it when they call me ma'am. I feel like it's like a distancing. You're an older lady, and please don't call me ma'am.
Well, having spent so many years in the Army, I'm used to being called ma'am. But I remember, I think you all knew my husband, David, except for Erwin. So, he had an aged appearance just because of, the massive gray hair and gray beard. So even when he, was not, he died at 69. So, he didn't get to be too super old, but Jessie was driving him when she had her learner's permit, and she caused a car accident. She pushed the accelerator instead of the brake, and David said he remembers the paramedics coming, or the police, and saying, and there's an old man in the car and he can't get out. He would probably in his 50s. I could do the math. Let's see, she's permit 80, 86, 90. Yeah, he was definitely in his 50s, but there's an old man and he can't get out.
Well, age discrimination in the employment law is anything over 40. So, he was in there.
Well, it's funny, a couple of stories here too. By the way, Sandy, next time somebody calls you ma'am, just tell them you may refer to me as your ladyship.
That'll take care of it.
That'll take care of it. But it's funny because I was reading a book today by Lee Goldberg, who started a new series called Lost Hills, and it's a mystery. And in that, the detective, a lady detective in this case, is trying to solve a murder, and there is a witness who is an older woman, and apparently she has some physical disability. She's got a cane and in certain cases that we can't handle it at all. So that's kind of a fun one that you can certainly look at. And what I was originally going to say is all you have to do is watch TV commercials for women, and they all seem to want to talk about wrinkles or youthful skin. There's this youth culture in this country today, and unless you look like you're 27, you're old. So everybody's trying to do that, and I think that's wrong. I think people should be admired for their age and their ability to survive all those years and make it through. I mean, people tell me all the time that I don't look my age, and I say, well, that's because I have a good embalmer. That's.
Look at Jane Fonda. Look how wonderful she looks. I don't know if you've seen her recently.
Yeah, I'm imagining, I don't know, that there might have been some surgical intervention there.
You think?
Daughter knows her plastic surgeon.
Yeah. So which in itself is an interesting phenomenon with forget major surgery, facelifts, that kind of stuff, with Botox and fillers. There are a lot of people chasing that young appearance, and it's there's a lot of pressure, I think, on women to engage in these activities. As Joe said, so much targeted advertising, not just for cosmetics and creams and all of that, but even more so. And I have a girlfriend also who says she believes that we will be the last generation that is allowed to age gracefully without the expectation that we're just going to have facelifts and,
Right.
you know, do all of these medical aesthetic procedures. So yeah, a lot.
I say I wear my age gracefully.
Well, the other thing, Rabbi, I think that we all fear when we get older is losing our independence.
Yeah.
So the issue of obviously living by ourselves and not having to depend either on family care or maybe assisted living or some other institution that will have to step in to take care of us.
I think there's a whole chapter or, you know, place in the book where we're going to talk about giving up driving.
Yes.
And, you know, what a challenging step that is. And, you know, yeah. Yeah, has anyone, Erwin, it sounds like, oh, Erwin, actually, you still do drive. You drive locally.
I do drive, but my girlfriend over here, she's trying to stop me. She doesn't realize how young I really am because I'm only 97. I haven't hit 100 yet. I can drive.
So, Mom, you want him to stop driving altogether?
What?
You want him to stop driving altogether?
It would be better, but I know it would be difficult for him to feel like confined, that he can't go out. So I can understand his driving very, very locally. But
yeah, Marilyn?
It is so many.
I love to drive, and I can drive wherever I have to, but I'm listening to the women in the family who probably know best.
Not me. So
anyway, Marilyn and then Jane.
Okay, we had a man probably several years younger than us, and we saw him and he was upset, and he said, I had to have the talk with my father that it's not safe for him to drive anymore. So we said, yeah, you know, that's a difficult conversation to have. And then he said, but people like you won't have to have that conversation with your kids because you could always get a self-driving car.
It's true. I think self-driving cars are going to be transformative in many ways, not the least of which for people as they age. And, you know, we have Uber and Lyft now as well, which I think makes it a little bit easier. But Jane, you were going to say something?
I forgot.
So being forgetful was actually on my list of stereotypes about aging, but yeah. I'm just going to show you. You shouldn't think you're the only one. While I'm listening to other people, there were a couple of things I wanted to comment on, and I wrote them down because I knew I would forget also. So you are not alone. When it comes back to you, you'll let us know. I was going to just react to what Sandy Kane said a little while ago about ma'am. So, you know, in the Army, of course, you know, I was used to being called ma'am. That was by regulation, I was called ma'am. But if you call an enlisted soldier sir or ma'am, they will correct you and say, don't call me sir, I work for a living.
Absolutely.
So it's an insult in that respect. I wish I could find the reference. I read somewhere, and I unfortunately didn't make note of it, that in Chinese culture, when we talk about the appearance of aging, and Joe, you were saying people tell you don't look your age, that in Chinese culture, if someone tells you they are 60, it is considered a compliment to say, really, I thought you must be at least 70, which is so countercultural to the American experience. But because the emphasis is on the association of wisdom with age, if someone tells you they're 60, you say, oh, I thought you must have been at least 70 because you are complimenting that they're so wise. They must be at least 10 years older. They can't possibly be that young and be as wise as they are.
Well, it's funny because, you're talking about the Asian cultures and if, I'm sure we've all seen at one time or another some samurai movie, and the fact that these samurai had pretty much of a bald head, and that was because the emperor was bald and they did not want to insult the emperor. So they all shaved their heads to look like the emperor,
So I'll tell you a funny story from the Talmud about shaved heads and baldness. So the Talmud advises that even though it is permissible in Jewish culture, at least at that time, to have more than one wife, that you shouldn't marry, if you're married, you shouldn't then marry a younger woman. Why? Because your older wife will pull out your dark hairs to make you look older, and your younger wife will pull out your gray hairs to make you look younger, and you'll end up bald.
That's funny.
So other stereotypes of aging?
Just being feeble, and
that was the other one I had on my list, bent over. Sometimes you see people who really are so seriously bent over when they walk, and it's painful to watch. And it gets harder and harder. I don't know if you find it to sit up straight. Do you find yourself working hard to remind yourself? I know they sell these things supposedly that ding you when you start to sag, and I have thought about acquiring those. I don't think about Botox and fillers for my face, but I do think about the posture thing, and I'm shrinking enough as it is without shrinking myself.
But you have that problem all the time with the feebleness. I mean, I know Frank and I can discuss this at length, but it took us a little time to figure out that we really needed to move up a tee box or two on the golf course. We just didn't want to give that up, but eventually you can't do what you used to do. And, so if you want to have some fun and not frustrate yourself, you have to accept certain things that and just bite the bullet and do it,
Yeah, that's a fantastic example, Joe. I got to remember that one also.
Well, and to add to that is the fear of having to give up a sport that you've enjoyed for most of your life. I remember my uncle played golf until he was 91 and 92. And then when he had to stop, it was so devastating for him that he couldn't get out there and play any more golf. That was really tough for him.
Yeah. Yeah, all of these little losses.
Well, especially when your whole social network revolves around your friends that do that together. Or David was involved in fencing, and after his heart condition, he couldn't take the hits with the epee, and he lost that whole social network that he had.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think that goes together.
So, my mom and Erwin have that with bridge. They're both avid bridge players. And you want to tell the story of how you initially connected?
Yeah. What happened is.
Yep, I think we lost her there for a minute.
Yeah, that's her problem. As I said, the busiest woman on.
We'll have to come back to her, I think, Rabbi.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the story.
About a week later, Erwin lost his
Mom,
leg.
start from the beginning.
And after,
Sandy Copel, start from the beginning.
Okay. My husband and I were big bridge players, and Erwin and his wife were always big bridge players. And they have a clubhouse here which had bridge at that time. And when I lost my husband, I lost my bridge game. And then when he lost his wife, he lost his bridge game. So one of my friends told me to call him up. I said, I'm embarrassed to call him up. So she was my very dear friend, and she called him up and said, would you play with Sandy? And so that's how we started seeing each other.
And that night after the bridge game, we went out to have a little bit of coffee and cake and whatever. And we went to a Dunkin' Donuts. Sandy invited me for coffee and tea, and we've been coffeeing and teaing and doing other things since that period. That's almost 40 years now. It is 40 years now.
Yeah. But it's difficult. Now that we're another 4 years older and our friends are 4 years older, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of our bridge players. They've moved away and whatever, and it's killing us now because, of course, with COVID, you can't play bridge. And even if we could, there's so few people left to play bridge with. And it's kind of sad, like talking about the people that lost their people with golfing or fencing.
Right, that's what made me think of it.
You know, one of the things, though, I think we could reverse this conversation, maybe not right now, but, you know, how many of us, when we were in our late 50s or maybe even early 60s, used to take advantage of senior discounts. I had a friend one time who was in there, you know, just turned 50, but he looked a little bit older, and he used to go to the movies, and whenever he said, let me buy the tickets, he would buy senior tickets for us. And he said, look, the kid behind the glass there is 16 years, 17 years old. That person, you know, what do they know? As far as I'm concerned, that could be 102. So they would give them the senior discount and not even ask for it, you know.
Yeah, I hate when they don't ask for my ID.
So Rabbi? Rabbi?
Yes?
One of my best experiences was coming down to Arizona, and when you get to be 75, you don't have to take off your shoes, and you can walk through quickly. Well, I tried to do that, and the guy asked me to give him proof of age. I said, you made my day. That was the most fun experience I had at an airport. He had to prove me to see how old I was.
Yeah, Frank, did you want to?
Yeah, there is an elephant in the room.
Oh, so?
And one of the things that probably is not overly talked about is the fear is that we get older, our abilities for intimate situations is the fear of how we, I'll use the word, perform as we get older.
That's a good one, Frank. And, you know, there are some medical interventions that can be helpful with that.
Yes, yep.
But yeah, that's definitely another, and I think, you know, since we're talking about it in terms of stereotypes, I think the stereotype is that older people don't care or are not interested. Right. You know, I'm guessing that, you know, most of us would say that is not the case, but that is certainly a stereotype of aging.
Yep.
Is that you become asexual when you get older.
You're only as young as you feel, and you can do whatever you want when you're young and feel young.
That's very comforting.
I just decided I had to move my monitor, my computer a little bit to put my bookshelf on screen, because I realize now that, you know, in today's world, if you're on Zoom and you don't have a bookshelf behind you, you're nobody, you know. If you
Well, it's obviously Greg is a somebody.
Yeah, Craig.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding about that, but if you've noticed, talking about stereotypes, just slightly different, that pretty much any news program you look at, any program that involves an interview, the interviewee usually is sitting in a room where they've got either lots of awards or a bookshelf behind them.
Right.
Unless they're lucky enough to have a golf course behind them.
Well, that's okay if you happen to be Tiger Woods or Rory McIlroy.
That'll beat the.
Yeah, I know it's very staged, and that goes back to Sandy's point of the stereotype of older people not being able to manage technology, and B, older people who in fact have distanced themselves from technology. So I'm thinking about a particular individual who's a member of the synagogue who was a very, very active participant in services and classes, very sharp, very intellectually engaged, who has moved into Sierra Point, Atria, which some of you may know, and has now no computer access. And with this COVID thing, it's been a disaster because this individual is now completely cut off from everything that was so meaningful to them. Can't participate in Torah study. The best we've been able to do is they have a cell phone and can like zoom in by phone to listen to a class, but that's gotten not fun, and I gotta check in on this person now that we're talking.
Are they not allowed to have a computer to plug in?
I think that they just don't have one. And
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, Rabbi. We looked at that facility from my mother-in-law, and they have public computers, so you might want to see about that. There are 3 or 4 of them.
I'm wondering. I would have thought there would be like a business center, or someplace where you could go. I gotta push it a little more. I don't know what's going on with that. So just before we move on, because we are going to move on to positive models of aging, I wanted to look specifically at this category of religious instruction, negative models of aging that we may have internalized from our religious life. And I struggled with that a little bit. I don't see, nothing readily came to my mind in terms of Jewish tradition and negative models. What about yourselves?
Well, we have a friend that at 83 had his second bar mitzvah.
Yes.
And that was very joyous.
Yeah, so age 70 is considered to be a full lifetime. And so when you hit 83, you're supposed to have a second bar mitzvah because it's like, you reach 13 again. But in terms of the rabbinate, I think it's harder for older rabbis to find employment. It's certainly the case that congregations assume that if they want to attract young congregants, they need to have a young rabbi. But I feel fortunate that I never felt pressure that I had to color my hair in order to appear younger, in order to function as a rabbi. I don't know if I was going out to look for a job. I wonder if that might become important. But I do think the role models in the Torah, in the Talmud, very much associate age with wisdom. So I'm not sure there's so much of a negative.
I think the only one I can think of, Rabbi, in my mind, and you won't find it in a reform or a reconstructionist synagogue, but if you go to more Orthodox or conservative synagogues, if they happen to have a daily minyan, the people who run the minyan are the older folks in that crowd. And when my dad was alive and he used to participate in that, I would get calls at like 6 o'clock in the morning saying, we need a 10th for a minyan, come down, And these guys would daven shacharit in the morning, and then they would have breakfast, which my dad used to put together for them. But it always amazed me that these guys would have a shot of schnapps right after services, and I don't understand how those guys still to this day can handle a shot of whiskey at like 6:30 in the morning. I mean, but you know, so the stereotype for the minion in the morning was, yeah, if I have a yard site, I'll go, but the old guys are there doing this, you know. Yeah.
Right, so I think there is a lot of respect for age in Jewish culture. And, you know, I probably have shared with you previously, there's a beautiful midrash that addresses the fact that, you know, when Moses came down from the mountain and saw the Israelites worshiping the golden calf, that he threw down the tablets of the 10 Commandments and they shattered. And then he had to go back up the mountain, make new tablets, you know, do the inscription. Well, those broken tablets were put in the ark alongside the new set. And the rabbi said that's an analogy for the honored place for our elders, even as they become old and broken, that they still have that place of honor and respect. So yeah, the old guys are the ones who have the time, if they're retired, to keep the minion going. There was, when Joe Lieberman was nominated to be the vice president, you know, of course, he was an Orthodox Jew, and it was very, very interesting. The members of his synagogue would send these reports of like what was going on in the synagogue when Joe Lieberman, now he has Secret Service protection, and it's an Orthodox shul, right? So the Secret Service wanted to insist that everybody go through a metal detector before they come into the service. And in an Orthodox shul, you can't use those electronics on Shabbat. So, you know, what were they going to do with that? How were they going to work it out? But I remember specifically one of the reports was that when the Secret Service saw that 10 a.m. shots of single malt whiskey were part of Jewish religious practice, they all wanted to convert. So
funny.
All right, so positive models of aging that have influenced you. Have you acquired any traits and attitudes that are helping you become an elder? So, I mean, you all see my major role model right here on the screen in front of you. You know, my mom is such an inspiration.
Thank you.
It's the truth in so many ways. You know, you see how she has sustained her intellectual engagement, how she takes care to exercise and eat well and be physically strong. To, you know, the volunteer work she does, I think, is very sustaining. And my mom is also a very wise woman. So I can't tell you how many times I call her looking for advice. How many times Ron says, well, what does your mom say? Or, you know, let's call your mom and ask her, because the benefit of her age and experience has led to a lot of wisdom. And her parents.
And that goes back,
What's that?
That goes back to the wisdom of aging, because the older you are, the more things you have gone through in your life, whatever it is, whether it be financial, whether it be educational, whatever it is, you've gone through it. And in her case, it's over 85 years. In my case, over 95 years. So you keep going, and the more you go, and the wiser you become, you still get it, still wiser. And hopefully when we get to be over 100, we'll be the top of the line.
So the question is, you know, if you learn from your experience, I don't know that it's to be taken for granted that every person does become wiser through their experience. You know, I think it's possible to make mistakes, to watch others make mistakes, and to not glean any lessons from that, and to keep not getting it. Some people are slower learners.
That's true too.
So I don't want to take it for granted.
There's an old saying that says, whether you say you can or you say you
need a
can't, you're
positive
right.
attitude.
Say that again, Joe.
I said there's an old saying that I kind of live by, and that says, if whether you say you can or you say you can't, you're right. So those people who say, I can't do that, I can't do this, of course they're right. If you say, I can do that, I can figure it out, I'll do that, then you're right. So it doesn't really matter. You just got to have, I think your mom just said a positive attitude, which is, I think, exactly what that is saying.
Yeah.
Is that, my parents had me late in life, and my dad's been gone for 33 years, actually next week. And he was always one, when he was in his early 80s, he was still doing push-ups and sit-ups every day. He was up at the crack of dawn, he was moving around. So it all seemed to work out well for him. And he never gave up trying to learn stuff. He was always interested in new things. And I think, like your mom and Erwin and everybody else on this call, if we weren't interested in learning, we wouldn't be here. So I think that speaks well for us.
Oh, so check this out. Here is my sister-in-law, Linda.
Hello.
This is Ron's sister.
I'm sorry I'm so late.
From Florida. Are you kidding? We're ecstatic that you could join us. This is the gang. We're working our way through this book, Getting Good at Getting Older.
Uh-huh.
And we spent the first half of our call talking about negative stereotypes about aging. And we didn't talk so much, but understanding like how those impact our own view of aging. So among the things we mentioned were becoming forgetful, living in the past, not being heard, not being taken seriously.
Right.
The physical challenges, age discrimination. We talked about the stereotype of older people as not being sexual at all, not being interested in sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're trying to move on to more positive perspective, positive models of aging that have impacted us. And I gave a long testimonial about my mom. My mom and Joe Newman were just talking about the importance of a positive attitude.
Sure.
So we're thinking about positive role models of aging. So who are some of the older people that inspire you?
I know one, Joe Biden. No.
I second that.
Oh, good. I don't know. Gosh, like Oprah. There's so many, I can't even begin.
How old is Oprah? Do we know?
Well, I guess she's younger than I am, so I think she's like probably about 65. That's not even getting very old yet, huh?
65?
I think something like that. 65, maybe 60. Well, yeah, probably about that age. But you know who I think is great is, well, Obama's not that old either. Gee, I like young
Obama's
people.
A kid. What, are you kidding?
Oh gosh. Oh, anyway.
So think about your parents and grandparents.
I looked it up. Oprah is 66 years old.
Good.
Oh,
Linda.
Close.
So she's Ron is 67 now, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, he just turned 67.
Yeah.
I remember my mom always.
Well, for me, I think it comes with the territory of the title that all our spiritual leaders, regardless of age, and especially the older ones, the stereotype is they are the wisest people in the world.
That's true.
I think of somebody like Golda Meir. That would be somebody who was older but had a lot of wisdom.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
There are a lot of folks who are still even going. Like I think I saw Mel Brooks on TV recently. He's got to be in his 90s, and he's still very sharp.
Didn't George Burns famously have a gig booked for his 100th birthday?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about a positive attitude.
You know what? Some of those famous older people, like Bob Hope and all those people that did so much, you know, way back when I thought they would pass away, that so much they would really celebrate them, and there were too few people that even knew who they were anymore to do any time.
That's right.
I think of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes.
Wow.
She's a wonderful role model for us all.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking out into popular culture. What if I want to bring it back to our own parents and grandparents? Was there something in their aging process that inspires and encourages you? Or not?
I have to say, in my case, I'd have to say my grandmother, Kushner. I idolized her, and her, you know, she just was this great woman, and learned how to handle passing away, you know, being ill so many years, you know, and then finally passing away. But she could do no wrong for me anyway. But
yeah, you know, how we are role models for our children and grandchildren is the flip side of that.
For sure.
Of that coin. I don't know how many of you remember Bill Strauss. I'm sure, Marilyn, you remember Bill Strauss. May he rest in peace. He was he was like a sportscaster or something in Arizona, and then he became director of the Anti-Defamation League for many, many years. But I remember him telling me this story that he got fired from a job, and he told his children, "I'm going to show you how getting fired is the best thing that ever happened to me." And you know, he was very aware of that fact that, you know, the kids are watching and they're taking notes. So Barbara, hi, welcome.
Hi.
Are you all alone, or you have grandkids with you there?
No, I am alone. Steve's doing telemedicine in another room, but I am here alone. I just was blank for a little while because there was too much other noise going on in the background, and I had some other distractions outside with some work.
Frank and I are sitting at separate tables. We're up at Munns Park.
Oh, wonderful. I know Frank is up there, and I'm looking at you with the beautiful scenery.
He's right at the next table.
I see.
Ron and I stayed with him last night. And
oh, wonderful, wonderful.
They played 9 holes together, and Ron is finishing up the other 9 holes.
It's the only game in town. That's great. I agree with, I did hear Frank's comment about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and that she immediately popped into my head. But when you ask about role models within our own family, my mother she's almost 92, is incredible. I would say my mother. My own grandparents were very hard workers, but they didn't even live to be my age. So when I look back to them, they seemed a lot older than anybody I know nowadays, pretty much, unless they're really in bad shape and and a lot older than my mom is. But my mother is one of these positive people who always has a smile on her face. She finds things, she laughs easily, and she makes the best of everything. She doesn't complain. I mean, I've been so worried about her. She's been isolated since the middle of March. She's living in an adult community outside of Philadelphia, but independently with her own apartment, and, you know, she's a good place in that she can get more care if she needs it there. But, you know, she has not even been allowed to walk in the hallways. They deliver food. Every 3 days she gets a dinner, which is all she went to the dining room for before. She doesn't complain. She is incredible. And she's just so happy to get the FaceTimes with us. She does use the computer, and we got her an iPad when her first great-grandchild was born. So everybody does call her and FaceTime her, and she just lives for the calls, and she's so happy that seeing everybody and seeing babies Googling back at her, and she thinks they're all wonderful, and she's just thankful that everyone is safe. And she's the kind of person where she lives, where when activities were there, she was busy. She never got to go to college, but she's smarter than most people I know who have gone, because she's so well read. She's like the top bridge player out of about 2,500 people where she lives. She's active in the Jewish community there, and she's in Hadassah and all these activities going on there, but she sees no one now. And I don't know if it would, you know, I've never felt like I've been totally isolated here, because I have my husband, and I've had, you know, kids around, and I've had other, you know, activities, even though I haven't really been out any place in public otherwise. But she's incredible. I hope and pray that I can be the way she is when I get to be, and I get to live as long as she has.
Yeah, so you mentioned a lot of the things that have been on many of our lists: a positive attitude, staying engaged, curiosity and learning, and being active. And then you also mentioned something that I haven't heard anyone else say, which is not complaining.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of an interesting one. Not, you know, it's a corollary, I think, of having a positive attitude, but you know, it is very easy to whine and complain. I think it's human nature. So to be able to resist the urge to complain, that's important.
Just watch the news. There's plenty to complain about.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's plenty to complain about, Marilyn. I think that trouble is like a gas. You know, a gas will fill whatever container it has. You know, if we have a small problem, you know, it becomes our whole world until a bigger problem comes, and then that becomes our whole world. So to be able to keep things in perspective. Did I ever tell you my favorite story about how people love to complain from Iraq? Yeah, forgive me if I'm repeating this story. So I was in 2005, I was in Abu Ghraib prison. I wasn't, you know, I was like, not, obviously I was visiting the Jewish service members who were serving there. And I was there for Passover. So, you know, April 2005, Abu Ghraib, you know what had just hit the fan internationally with those photos that they took. And the morale was so depressing. And the place was just, it was muddy. There was not a blade of grass growing. They were under constant attack. They didn't even have flush toilets. It was just a miserable, miserable environment. And when I left there, I got on a helicopter. 20 minutes later, I was at the presidential palace in Baghdad. Literally gold faucets in the washrooms, hand painted carved wood ceilings, marble walls and floors. And what are the soldiers there complaining about? Their feet hurt from walking on the marble in their combat boots. There was no traction on the marble floors for their feet, and their feet hurt. And it just made such an impression on me that people will always find something to complain about. You know, the contrast of, like, you could be assigned to Abu Ghraib right now, and instead you are literally in a palace, and yet you have to have something to complain about. So
I'm sorry, are you finished?
I was just saying that's an interesting quality that you called to our attention that your mom has.
I was going to say, add to that though, the only negative is she so much doesn't want to complain that she hides things from us because we shouldn't worry. That's the negative.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we've been concerned because no one has seen her, that kind of thing. But so there have been some issues like that where
I can see that.
When Steve finds out, he can make some calls and get things moving for her. But when she just says everything is fine, that's not so good. She just doesn't want to worry anybody. She puts everyone else too much above herself. I think there were times when she didn't want me to fly out to see her because she felt it was, you know, I was too busy. I had too much, and she didn't want to, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
That would be my only complaint.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's not for naught that Hillel said, "If I am not for myself, who will be for me?" You know, I mean, you do have to advocate for your own needs.
Rabbi, would you say that in describing this quality of not complaining, it's like a midot or midah? You know, if you don't complain at all and you put everybody ahead of you, that's not good. But if you complain,
read my mind. You absolutely read my mind that it's all a question of balance and finding the appropriate middle point. So Barbara, by the way, I don't know if you see on the screen, joining us for the first time is Linda Rowland. That's Ron's sister from Florida.
Oh, I did see a new face that I didn't recognize. Nice to meet you, Linda.
Yeah, Linda lives
from Florida
in Melbourne.
Yes.
And wasn't I also was going to ask you, I miss the part with Barb Honigberg and talking about Next Avenue?
Yeah, no, she didn't join us, so we'll have to
another time
find out what happened.
Okay.
You know, as they said in Fiddler, good news will stay and bad news will refuse to leave, right? You know, well, if she didn't pop in this week, she'll pop in next week.
Okay.
So,
you know, go ahead. I'm sorry, Robert. Go ahead.
No, Joe, please. I'm going to move to another thing. So, yeah.
I was just going to say that, you know, as far as people in my family that I admire is, I unfortunately, two of my first cousins and I are now the senior members of the family. I have two cousins that are older than I. One is 12 years, one is 10 years older. And the 12-year-old, the person who's 12 years old, I've always admired for the fact that he always, even without a college education, has managed to stay up with technology, has managed to keep himself sharp, has been through a lot of adversity in his life, including he's a recovering alcoholic and other, but he's still on top of his game. And so no matter what pitfalls have managed to throw themselves in his way, he's managed to recover. And I think that getting through adversity is a big part of it. I mean, he's been through two wives that have passed away, one very young. He had infant children when she had cancer and died. And then recently another one has passed away. So no matter what happened to him, he's always been able to stay on top of it. My other cousin has been married for 64 years now. And it's a mixed marriage. And I've always admired the fact that he's Catholic, of course, she's Jewish, and they've always respected each other. And I think I learned from that that is a big part of keeping a marriage together is not only love and understanding, but respect for each other and what you think about it. So I think those are two things that I've learned from that.
That's beautiful.
Yep.
I really admire my mother.
Richard, go ahead.
Oh, just what Joe was mentioning about dealing with adversity and keeping on going. My mother was thrown a lot of curveballs in her life, and yet she really set she just did a terrific job of bringing me and my brother, getting us a good education and a good home. And she had the usual problems of being a divorced woman who was very intelligent but didn't have a degree. And so I think about her a lot.
Overcoming adversity.
Yeah, yeah. And
so yes, Marilyn. Are you going to? Yeah, Marilyn is going to celebrate her daughter Sharon's birthday.
Sharon, say hi to Sharon for me. She was one of my first babysitters for Adam.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Nice to see everybody.
All right, so nice to see you
next week.
Thanks for checking in with us.
Thank you.
Bye.
So to complete, so you remember we're in chapter 5, exercising for sages in training. So this chapter is written by Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi, who I mentioned was my teacher. I didn't mention also was the officiant at David and my wedding. So we're going to finish up the first exercise, and we'll pick up next week with number 2. So he's suggesting, in your mind's eye, make a composite of the good models and imagine what it feels like to walk in the shoes of such an elder. So think of all of those good qualities and imagine what it would be like to have those. Do you have a useful role in society? Are you earning respect and recognition for your wisdom? Is growing older a blessing or a burden? Visualize going through a routine day as your ideal elder, feeling confident, respected, and socially useful. Confident, respected, and socially useful. Be as concrete and detailed as possible in imagining encounters with colleagues at work, loved ones, friends, and associates, and mentees. Know that by envisioning a positive future, you are seeding consciousness with the expectation of your own potential growth. So we're going to conclude with what he calls the Elder Creed. And I would love if we could read it all together, but when you try to read together on Zoom, it just is a cacophony and it doesn't really work. So it's on page 51, number 7, if you want to follow along, and I'm going to read it for all of us. An elder is a person who is still growing, still a learner, still with potential, and whose life continues to have within it promise for and connection to the future. An elder is still in pursuit of happiness, joy, and pleasure, and her or his birthright to these remains intact. Moreover, an elder is a person who deserves respect and honor, and whose work it is to synthesize wisdom from lifelong experience and formulate this into a legacy for future generations. So Reb Zalman suggests that you take a moment and capture in your journal any insights or questions that reading that Elder Creed brings to mind. And we'll begin next week with that. And then moving on to exercise 2, which is similar to something that we did do for those of you who were with us in Wise Age, but Wise Aging. In the Wise Aging book, they have a similar notion of kind of a life review of the ages and stages of our lives and what some of the highlights of those were. So if you have a minute to move through that and to start thinking about that, that will be helpful. But 12 periods of our lives, significant moments and events in each of those phases of our lives. So I don't like to assign you homework, because then I'm afraid you won't come back if you didn't have a chance to do your homework. But come anyway, whether you have a chance to do any homework or not. Nice to see anybody. Any final thoughts or anything that you want to share reflecting on today's conversation?
Just one, been there, done that.
Erwin, it's great to have you.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, I'm going to end the recording and I will download it and send it to you when I get back down into the valley. So everybody,
Thank you, everybody.
Enjoy that call.
yeah.